disputes about money over certain situations, and they got in a fight prior to that, and they said, like, the story that they say Sack beat him up and knocked his goals out in front of his girlfriend, and like 2 days later, I think that's when the incident happened.
Really?
All right, y'all, we back with day 3 of the YNW Melly trial, and we breaking it all down. First, we got the inside court details with Lawyers for Workers, and we have YNW Juvy's father giving us the reason why he thinks Melly did the shooting. Let's get into it right now.
YNW Melly trial, fascinating stuff so far. You'll see if you're following along with the live cast that the prosecution is going at a very controlled pace, very different from the way the defense's presentation is. And that's because the reason why, this is a circumstantial evidence case. If you're the prosecution, you don't have direct evidence implicating the defendant. A victim saying this guy shot me. You don't have that. So you have to be careful of not being overly aggressive, doing too much. At the same time, while they're going slow and controlled and being very clear, you have to be careful that you don't lose the jury and bore people out of their mind and say, what is your case about? Because I'm not really getting there. The defense you're going to see, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to be cagey. They're going to remind that you have a 19-year-old who's being accused of double murder after being held for 4 years and the death penalty. So circumstantial evidence, thank you, but we need to know what the hell you're talking about here and why you think we should kill this person. And so there's this big change and difference in the strategy where one person is very slow and controlled and might lose the jury, and the other side is just chomping at the bit to get at stuff like, what about this, what about that, what about this? Fascinating stuff. We'll be here covering the trial through the rest of the week. This trial is expected to last 2 weeks, maybe 3. The whole trial is being live streamed on my YouTube currently until we get the full YouTube for the new outlet Took It to Trial up and running. Stay tuned.
All right. Now, I'm glad he spoke on how some of the stuff is boring people, because y'all notice I didn't even come in and give y'all details about day 2 because nothing really happened. They're keeping it real slow and steady, okay? Or at least the prosecution, the people who trying to lock up Melly, they real slow, and I think they might be losing the jury. But also remember, he said that they really don't have direct proof that Melly did this shooting, which takes me to this, all right? Okay, so this guy right here, he took the stand, and he's supposed to be the gentleman explaining to us why, if Melly was sitting in the back seat, he was the one who shot Juvy and Sack Chaser, okay? But when he took the stand to explain that, because he's supposed to be ballistics, and he's saying, okay, the bullets look like they came from the back instead of a drive-by shooting. Because remember, they trying to say that Melly set up a drive-by to look like Juvy and Sack Chaser were killed that way instead of being murdered directly. But when he took the stand to explain this, I don't think he did a good enough job of getting the information to the audience, because remember, it's being live streamed, or to the jury that Melly might have did this. So I think the prosecution took an L with this guy right here. I would play the audio, but you can barely hear him talking. He was real soft-spoken, and he really didn't look like he knew what he was talking about. And that's why we keep going back to, they really don't have any evidence of Melly doing this. Also, I want to give y'all Melly's reaction when basically in court they said they don't even have the gun that was used to kill Juvy and Sack Chaser.
The first thing is I didn't have a firearm, so I can't know which firearm I'm going to use in order to replicate any of my tests. So I can't make tests for this determination because I don't know what firearm was used.
Okay. Do you have a overall list of potential firearms that could have caused the ballistics evidence in this, or created the ballistics evidence in this case?
Yes, so I did use the projectiles and the visible characteristics from the cartridge case, and I ran the information.
See, right here, the lawyer is telling Melly that's good for you. If they ain't got a gun, but see, After the Megan Thee Stallion trial, I'm just letting y'all know. Like, I don't know what can happen in the courtroom no more, because according to the Megan Thee Stallion trial, evidence don't really matter. It don't matter if you ain't got a witness or this and this and that. If somebody just magically pretend like you did it, then you must have did it. And I know a lot of people gonna get mad at me for saying that, but that's how I feel.
Information through the general rifle characteristics database that the FBI initially made, and now it's being housed by the Association of Pharmacopoeia Examiners. And it did come back with a list. It was a fairly lengthy list of firearms manufacturers, and so when the list contained.
Now you see, that's another good thing for Melly too. He said it's a big list of guns that it could have been that shot these two dudes. Okay, so they don't even really know how to narrow it down to maybe one or two guns that could have did it. That's just how the bullet evidence came back.
That many, we don't typically report out a list of suspect weapons because it's just too many to report. We essentially just insert a report that if you need the list, let us know and we'll let you know how many firearms and which ones they are that could have fired this evidence. And that list is by no means exhaustive either. So there's really no way to know that that's all of the firearms that could have fired it, or was there a homemade firearm that fired it, or any other parts of these kind of.
Bro, that nigga said a homemade firearm. So they so desperate, they saying, oh, Melly could be like one of these metal specialists and making guns at home. He know how to make a homemade gun. Well, he took a Fago bottle and put it on the gun,
Parts.
And that's why Melly is looking so confident. But like I just said, man, we saw Tory looking confident too. Anything could happen. I just don't think nowadays these celebrities should just go walking into a trial thinking, oh, I got this wrapped up. Boy, you better think again. Now, I told y'all YNW Juvy's father was giving us a motive to why he think Melly shot Juvy and Sack Chaser. Let's check that out right now.
But why do you think this happened?
I think the story about the 200,000 with Anthony was a true story because it's not reported, but Chris told me the same story, and also it was a $500,000 play, and Melly was going to get 200,000, Sack was going to get 200,000, Chris was going to get 100,000, and as I'm hearing it from Chris, they was going to sell the YNW brand, not a record deal or nothing like that. It was like for the brand itself, and by them being founding members, they was going to get a piece of the pie. So I don't think Melly did it on his own. I think that manager guy got in his ear and did a little divide and conquer. Because if it was up to Sack, it would never be a 100K management.
They were going to sell the YNW name for licensing or to sell products. What do you mean they were going to sell the name?
For marketing, licensing, stuff like that. I think they want to go up on the big umbrella just to push them. I think push the brand more global.
Did a bigger cut of that then?
I think Melly didn't want to give them guys nothing. He wanted to be the only one to shine. And then they came to town next day and gave the mothers 15,000, the other mother 10,000. So I thought to myself, if Sack was going to get 200,000, Chris was getting 100,000. If we could pay these people 25,000, keep 275,000, that's how I saw it. It just nothing added up. Melly still to this day for me to hear him call them boys his best friend is an insult. That is an insult.
Was there any sign of bad blood before your son's life was taken and before Anthony was killed? Or was there any tension there that you knew of?
Not with Juvy, not with Chris, but you heard things about him and Anthony getting into like altercations or disputes about money over certain situations. And they got in a fight prior to that, and they said, the story that they say Sack beat him up and knocked his goals out in front of his girlfriend, and 2 days later, I think that's when the incident happened.
All right. Now, it's a lot to take from that story from Juvy's father. I I didn't know anything about this before I heard him talk about it. So they was basically about to split $300K, and he feels like Melly wanted to keep all of the money. Now, obviously, I'm assuming this is before Melly blew up. But it's hard for me not to take in account everything that happened in Melly's career as he got bigger, right? Once Murder on My Mind blew up, he was out of there. And I think this question really comes down to, do you think YNW Melly felt like his career wasn't going to do anything? Because if he felt like, you know, this little 300,000, I need to keep all of this because I'm never going to get a dollar again. Okay, that story that Juvy's father is breaking down is more believable. But I think it's a chance that if Melly started kind of moving and YNW started blowing up, he probably thought it was more money coming. So this basically comes down to, do you believe that YNW Melly was so thirsty over 300K? And that's kind of hard to believe when you see a nigga blow up and start doing songs with Kanye West. Melly was about to really blow up. I can't say how long his run would have been, but I think he definitely had a nice 2 or 3 years in him, for sure. He could have definitely went on a nice little Fetty Wap run, okay? I think he could have got to that bag, and it's just like, I just can't see him really wanting to kill his friends over 300K. Then you add into account, he said, that Melly went and gave the mothers some money. So, okay, he didn't give them $200,000 or $100,000 they were supposed to get. But if you really just trying to keep all the money, why even give them any money at all? And look, I'm not trying to pick a side here. I'm just using my brain because, you know, I don't know. God forbid he might have did it, right? And I'm saying God forbid just because it's sad to see 2 young brothers pass away. I don't care if you niggas want to say they was gangsters and they was in the streets. Nobody deserves to get their life taken, especially the way that they were killed, okay? So I feel for the father, but it's a lot of questions about the story he just gave us. I'm just being honest with you because, you know, y'all let me know what y'all think. It's a very difficult situation to talk about because you just, you know, you don't want to act like you don't feel for the parents. But then with Juvy's father, he beefing with his daughter who is supporting Melly. I think his other baby mama is supporting Melly, and his son, one of his sons, is supporting Melly too. So the father is the only one who against Melly out of his family, which is very crazy too. And y'all got to keep that in mind. So let me know what y'all think. Make sure you like the video and subscribe. I'll be back with more details. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.